The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Good morning, Australia and New Zealand. Good afternoon, our New Zealand friends, actually. 1 o'clock in New Zealand, 11 a.m. in Australia. Welcome to Connect’20 Australia, New Zealand from Genetec. So obviously we're unable to do this face-to-face. On other years, we've been able to have the opportunity to meet face-to-face in somewhere warm like Byron Bay or Bali or Vietnam, for example. This time, because of the restrictions, we're actually doing this virtually. Unfortunately, that means that we don't get to have a drink afterwards on the beach. We were going to use Uber Eats and send you a bag of sand and a cold beer, but due to licensing restrictions, we wasn't able to do that, and just sending a bag of sand would probably been a bit weird. Anyway, let's get started. So, like I said, welcome to webinar land. We're not able to go abroad, and we're not able to go to the beach. So this is Genetec webinar land. As with any webinar, we're going to have some unexpected visitors. So expect barking dogs, expect screaming children, expect slides to have a bit of internet lag or whatever. We were last night in webinar land praying to the webinar gods. So hopefully we won't have too many technical issues as we progress through the webinar over the next 90 minutes. So anyway, we can't go somewhere hot this year, but we can definitely go somewhere hot next year. So Genetec are running, in collaboration with Intel and Dell, our Vision of Excellence StreamVault to Paradise competition. This will be a trip for our certified partners that are excelling in Genetec and StreamVault sales to go to Fiji next year, once obviously all of the restrictions are released. The competition is going on this year, and we'll be speaking a bit more about that tomorrow in detail. But just wanted to put that up there to at least show where we were last year, somewhere hot with that cold beer after the webinar. We will be getting back to normal service once obviously we're allowed to fly safely. So thank you everybody for joining. Over the next 90 minutes, we're going to have a conversation with all of our new Genetec ANZ team. So to kick that off, I'm going to hand over to George Moad, who's going to give us a bit of an update on where we've been and where we're heading, and actually introduce the team to everybody. So over to you, George.
Thank you, Lee. Let me just, here we go. You didn't pray hard enough for the gods, mate. Mate, first and foremost, thank you. For the people that don't know me, my name is George Moad. I'm the country manager for Genetec for Australia and New Zealand. I was going to talk a little bit about where we are and where we're heading with Genetec, particularly in Australia and New Zealand as well. So the first and foremost, we have had a healthy growth for the last 10 years with Genetec globally. We've had 30% annual growth year on year. Genetec is the only security and public safety solutions developer to hold a top 10 global ranking across all physical security industry sectors, including video management system, access control system, and LPR. That's all software across the board. So we're the only company that hold the top 10, and we'll talk about the rankings, different sectors in a second. We also are present in 150 countries. Now we look after, our team here looks after Oceania, so Australia, New Zealand, the South Pacific Islands as well. Our main verticals at ANZ are transportation, government, cities, and critical infrastructure. Just to give you a snapshot of our global presence, there's 10 regional offices, with the Sydney office coming in 2020. Just to introduce you to the team has been expanding in the last 12 months. We can start from the left to right. Obviously, most people will know Phil we met. He's the Director of Strategic Partnerships. There's myself. There's also Lee Shelford, who's the Sales Engineering APAC Manager. We've got our professional services manager as well, and in Ben, and Sharon is our marketing manager. The sales team on the ground in ANZ, we'll start from the left. We've got William Glasson, who looks after the northern part of Australia. On the right-hand side there, we've got Dominic Capalia, who looks after the southern part of Australia. And our newest RSM, Cameron Wadden, who looks after the New Zealand business. From a sales engineering perspective, we've got Aaron Colley, so he looks after the whole ANZ part of sales engineering. And his colleague as well is Jordan Spiteri, who's in Melbourne, also a sales engineer. On the right-hand side there, on the Ben's team, we've got some project engineers in both Richard White and Bradley Ferguson. We've also got a solution architect in Zane Engstrom. We've got the newest recruit, a dedicated customer care in Chris Thompson, who gives a white glove treatment to critical and special end users. Our technical support engineer is in David Martinovic, and our channel sales specialist in Jesse. Genetec's been in Australia since 2005, and we're built on a 15-year success. And from there, I'll give you some numbers to give you an idea where we go from here on. So there's over 150,000 video channels in Australia and New Zealand currently. Over 20,000 Synergist stores. Over 600 Sharp LPR cameras. Over 3,000 SIP intercoms. We've got over 30% of our 3,100 systems in Australia and New Zealand that are unified. And what I mean by unified is they've got the unified experience where they've got, a combination of video, access control, LPR, analytics, mission control, and all the experience from all one pane of glass. So over 1,000 systems are experiencing the unification story in Australia and New Zealand. To give you an idea of what we're positioned around the world, I'll give you our position in the marketplace. The green section is video, so we're number one in video. The grey section is servers and recorders, we're number two globally. Bottom right is license plate recognition, we're number two globally as well. And the access control in the red quadrant, we're number five globally. To give you an idea of our R&D investment, Genetec has been investing over 30% of their revenue back into R&D from day dot. To give you an idea of what was happening in 2008, so the green section is the video R&D investment, yellow is the LPR, red is access control, and blue are the enablers or the new innovations. And since then, so today we have the same investment in video, access control, and LPR. We'll put a lot of weight behind the new innovations like the application groups and CityGraph and Airport Sense, mission control, the plugins and integrations, Kiwi Analytics, and cloud services. So this gives you an idea. If you come on the journey with Genetec, you will be future-proof, knowing that 30% of our revenue goes back to R&D. And speaking of future-proof, I'd like to hand over to Mr. Lee Shelford. Lee, over to you, mate.
Thanks, George. Great intro. It's really great to see the expanding ANZ team. We've got everybody pretty much in every state now. I think we can still call Victoria state. It's kind of a bit of a touchy subject at the moment, but yes, we can definitely call Victoria an Australian state still. So I'm going to kick off with a bit of an overview into Security Centre, and then we're going to hear a little bit from Dominic and Jordan around Omnicast and some of the ways that Omnicast can overcome current challenges, security challenges, etc. Then we're going to hand into Will, who's going to talk about Synergis. And then we're going to finish off with Aaron talking about AutoView, and then Cameron talking about Sepilia. So as George talked about, we're investing over 30% back into R&D year on year. A lot of that investment is also going into intelligence. We've got a lot of PhDs, a lot of data scientists, a lot of very smart people on staff, not just in Montreal, but in the Paris development offices, as well as around the world. That's allowing us to expand the portfolio much more out than the traditional security center 3 core pillars. But that's a bit more for tomorrow's conversation on the innovation and how we're innovating the everyday, especially with the current challenges and how Genetec collaborating with our customers and being agile enough to rise to the challenge of helping people get back into facilities and make sure that occupancy is under the required safety levels, etc. So that's a bit more for tomorrow on the intelligence side of stuff. Today, we're really going to hone in on Security Center, that core foundation, that platform, and those 3 core pillars, and what we now call the 4th core pillar, which is Sepilia communications. So one of the things that unification allows us to do is complete the whole workflow of an operations center. So all the way from the sensor, whether it be a camera, a door asset or a reader, a SIP intercom help point, an LPR camera, or an IoT device, maybe a SCADA device or a PLC, etc. We sense that, we obviously bring it into the system, we rationalize it and understand it, and then we visualize it and obviously give that information to the operators. Traditionally, that sense, understand, and visualize component was really the work of a traditional security vendor or a VMS. The taking action, the correlation of that, the Boolean logic, the standard operating procedures, as well as the more advanced visualization and dashboards, was really the traditional job of a PSIM. But as we know, that can be quite complex and costly and have lots of version control issues. And then once we get the evidence, it's really was down to traditional evidence management vendors to be able to collaborate effectively, maintaining the chain of custody. Genetec has the ability with that white portfolio to be able to take control and optimize that whole workflow from end to end, from sensing all the way through to the collaboration at the other end. And we're going to talk a bit more about that as we go through today. So everything starts at the core with Security Center. We like to build that strong foundation, and we like to encourage customers to use Security Center to build that strong foundation, which can then be built on over time as either requirement or budget dictates. Obviously, the 3 core pillars are Synergis Access Control, Omnicast IP Video, and AutoView License Plate Recognition. As I mentioned, we're also going to talk to the 4th core pillar, which you'll see down the bottom here, is the communications management with Sepilia, the one-to-many broadcast, the PA announcements, the emergency help points, and also the operator-to-operator 2-way communications. So Cameron's going to talk a bit more at the end on our 4th core pillar now. So let's actually have a look at this from a real world perspective. So if you walked into a modern control room or a facility like you can see in the image here, what would you see? You might see situational awareness. You might see information overload. You might see IoT. You might see visualization. If we look at this from a risk perspective, we might also see potential concerns for IT managers, like unprotected edge devices like cameras or door controllers or even readers connected to the system with default or generic passwords, devices that might be connected to that IT manager's network that might have old and vulnerable firmware. We might have an operator in the middle there giving access control to people that shouldn't have access to a certain area, or forgetting to revoke that access control access at the end of the day. We might have that supervisor at the back of the control room there checking the health and safety of the operation systems, but using a generic user account to log in. So we don't know who's accessed what and when, because they're all using the same admin pass account, for example. So you can see a modern control room is not just feature rich and have a lot of visualization. There are a lot of potential concerns or risks involved with deploying this. So with that, I'm going to hand over to our new RSM, Dominic Papalia in Melbourne, in Victoria. He's still alive. He's still going well, even though he's on lockdown. Thank God for webinars, and we can still continue the conversation. So over to you, Dominic.
Most definitely. Thank you very much, Lee. Greatly appreciated. Yeah, so my name's Dominic Papalia. I'm the Regional Sales Manager at Genetec for Victoria, South Australia and Tasmania. Today, along with Genetec Sales Engineer Jordan Spiteri, we're going to run through some key features and topics on Security Centre Omnicast. So firstly, I'd like to touch base on where Genetec is at on an international scale. And I'm happy to say that we're the only security and public safety solutions provider to hold 10 global rankings, as George had mentioned before, across all physical and security industry sectors. In fact, we're top 5 with number 1 in global VMS, number 2 in recorders and ALPR, and number 5 in access control. We've achieved this due to a feature set which with many of offerings on our products, and just part of this is our Security Centre Omnicast. So what is Security Centre Omnicast? Well, it's a unified IP video management system which has an open hardware independent platform system. You may be asking why so many people right now are interested in Security Centre Omnicast. Well, let me tell you why. Omnicast is flexible and it's scalable, and it also evolves with your needs. And for example, it lets you grow your system over time, allowing you to add devices and technologies from a variety of manufacturers. Beyond capturing reliable and usable evidence, it also lets you see and understand your environment. VMS allows you to automate security, perform maintenance and forensic operations with unified modules such as our Synergist Access Control, our ALPR, and also third-party integrations. So over the past few Genetec versions, key features such as the built-in health dashboard, the camera password manager, and the firmware vault have not only added value to a system, but they've also added extra security within security. Firstly, the built-in health dashboard, introduced in version 5.8.0, provides immediate visibility of key health events, I should say, throughout the system. And it leverages several new specialized widgets to optimize visualization and also navigation of data. Secondly, the camera password manager now has new unified roles and privileges, and it also works with ONVIF, Genetec protocol, and has specific integration with Hanwha, Axis, Bosch, and the new named Panasonic or iPro cameras. Firmware Vault is a new tool powered by the Genetec update service, and we also call that GUS. And we'll talk more about this shortly with Jordan's presentation. So security operating centers face the challenge of adding more and more cameras and sensors and so on their system. So with many cameras, the challenge is how can we ensure that when an incident occurs, we can react as well as use the information that is there more efficiently. And with traditional video monitoring systems, an operator has to manually search for an adjacent camera when the suspect leaves the camera's current field of view. And this is a timely and complicated task, especially when navigating through systems with hundreds or even thousands of cameras. Security operators need to find evidence faster, investigate more efficiently, and also extract value from this recorded video. So let's focus on finding evidence faster with visual tracking. So essentially, if I bring up the camera on a Genetec corporate building and enable the tracking feed, you can see that there's a box, and this box is representative of the camera on the main entrance. If I click on that camera, it brings me inside the building. See the feed? Yep, the box inside the building. Now I can go back, I can go inside the building by clicking on that box. Now I can go back outside the building by clicking on that box again. So I can click on that one now, I'm brought to that camera, and I can go back in and I can go back out again. So essentially there's another camera view of the same internal. So I can go back out, I can go back in, and I can also click on a different view camera that's inside the same complex to give you a different view. And again, I can click on that blue area and go back out, and I can go back outside the building once again. So simply speaking, with regards to that, moving on. The best thing about this is it's free with Security Center, and visual tracking saves you time and simplifies monitoring and investigation of tasks. You can follow someone quickly without losing time looking for the right camera to switch to. You don't have to remember all the camera names in your system because the cameras are linked together, and you have colored shapes, as you can see in this example on the video image, according to how they're configured. Each shape corresponds to another camera's field of view that you can switch to by clicking it. You can even make a specific color applicable to, say, blue can apply to adjoining cameras in view, as can be seen here in this example. So moving upwards and downwards can be created by creating a red color and applied to adjoining cameras in view, or even moving left or right. You can have a blue color to move left or right, for example, too. So in live monitoring mode, an operator clicking on the shape will automatically switch the video stream from the current camera to an adjacent camera, and this happens all in real time with the same video tile and with a simple click of a mouse button. So some of the advantage of linking cameras in virtual tracking are you can train new operators quickly, you can reduce the operator's stress and increase efficiency during high alert situations, you can simplify the operator's tasks with advanced in-tile commands, you can save time and streamline important investigations as well. So now I'd like to hand over to our sales engineer, Jordan Spiteri, who will be covering password manager firmware role in more detail. So over to you, Jordan.
Thanks, Dom. Really interesting stuff. As Dom's mentioned, my name is Jordan Spiteri, and I'm the new sales engineer located in the Melbourne region for Genetec. Now, what I'd like to talk about today would be some new features of Omnicast, which is our VMS core pillar, and also some CCTV vulnerabilities present today, and how Omnicast can actually mitigate these issues and vulnerabilities. Two numbers to keep in mind today would be 23 and 70. Unfortunately, not lotto numbers, but CCTV statistics, vulnerability statistics. So we'll start with number 23. 23% of systems have been found to have at least one camera still using default credentials. This opens the camera to unauthorized access, which can put the whole system and the physical site in the hands of attackers. Okay, in 2017, there was a huge botnet of infected IP cameras, which were used to perform denial of service attacks, and were able to take down huge websites like Twitter, Reddit, and Netflix. Essentially, this was all caused by the botnet code testing a list of 60 default credentials to try and log into unsecured devices and inject its code. So how can we assist with making password changes even easier? That would be our camera password manager. Security Center's password manager now makes it even easier to be able to manage device credentials from just one location. Passwords can be updated via single, batch, scheduled, and even triggered methods. So for example, you could schedule a password change every 6 months so that the security system can be compliant with IT department's best recommendations, or even use the certain threat levels to trigger a site-wide password change. As we've all seen before, sometimes overhandling of forced password changes can cause people to become lazy and just reuse the old password with an extra exclamation mark at the end of it. A way to overcome this would be to use the embedded random password generator Security Center now has, which will generate a strong, random, unique password to be used on all required devices. Security Center keeps track of all passwords, and if desired, a secured exportable passwords can also be created by a privileged user. Brings us to our second number, which is 70. 70% of cameras have been seen to be running out-of-date firmware. This is really scary stuff. As you would be probably be aware, many security vulnerabilities are present in older firmware. And by using the outdated firmware, it can leave your devices accessible by unauthorized users. In 2017 saw a widespread vulnerability exploit called Devil's Ivy. This affected many cameras and other devices using a Linux distribution, which is quite a few. This vulnerability would give an unauthorized user admin privileges and would allow them to be able to even view the camera stream if desired. Even though most manufacturers have patched this vulnerability via new firmware, many devices still remain on old firmware and therefore still susceptible to this vulnerability today. So how can Genetec assist with making firmware updates even easier? The Firmware Vault. The Firmware Vault was originally introduced in version 5.8.1, where it has been helping users perform camera firmware upgrades seamlessly. Thanks to this feature, a user will be notified of a new firmware upgrade available for one or more of their devices. From here, the user will be presented with a recommended upgrade for a particular camera, illustrating the severity of said upgrade. For example, the firmware contains new functionality or even a serious vulnerability patch. A huge benefit of the Firmware Vault is that it is now powered by, as Dom was mentioning before, GUS, which is the Genetec update service, allowing Security Center to be downloaded. It allows Security Center to download the most current and untampered firmware straight from the single application. I'll now hand you over back to Dom to wrap things up. Thanks, guys.
Many thanks, Jordan, for that. Very informative. So in summary, with the ideal Security Center ecosystem, we get to use the latest devices and technologies on a platform that has been upgraded and maintained with new features and plugins, such as the ones just shown in Virtual Tracking, Password Manager, and Firmware Vault. And particularly with Password Manager and Firmware Vault, these are great conversations to have. And the question is, are some of these features some of the things that your customers are actually needing? I would definitely say yes, they are, and they're a good talking point in conversation. So we find that we can adapt to the customer's needs, their vision, and what they may specifically require with features feedback. And this also includes the ever-growing need for adding analytics, such as our Kiwi Vision people counting and other analytic solutions, which we'll discuss further tomorrow in our innovation section. In this case, this allows users to get the most out of our system. And lastly, on behalf of Jordan and myself, thanks for listening. Over to you, Lee. Thank you.
Thanks, Dominic and Jordan. That was really great. It's really exciting to see the level of security and just the simple things that you would think, being able to not only schedule a batch password change on randomizing that password change, but also use something like a threat level. So if we've got a heightened threat level, first thing we do, the system automatically goes and changes all of those passwords in your end devices, it could be hundreds or even thousands, to a new, strong, randomized password just to be safe. And obviously the firmware. So we're taking the pain out of, firstly, understanding if there's been a vulnerability in any of your end devices. You may have, and thanks to the beauty of the supported device list, many different manufacturers from a lot of the Genetec technology vendors on your system, being able to understand how old the firmwares are and if they pose a threat or just a feature implication is the first thing. But then obviously finding the correct firmware, have it automatically downloaded because you're connected via a secure encrypted proxy to the Genetec update service. All your administrator has to do is just right click that mouse button on a scheduled maintenance and again batch push that corrected firmware out to all of the affected devices on your network. So again, it's making it easy to understand what threats there are, as well as also making it easy to rectify them. So we're going to go a bit more into the technicalities of Omnicast, so how to efficiently use redirectors, the new GPU acceleration for things like the media gateway role. So we're not just using graphics cards now to decode video in our workstations. We're also using them to improve the performance of our analytics and also the performance of some of our core video transcoding roles. So a lot of that information will be part of the deep dive session. If you've got technical sales or technical specialists, please send them the link. You'll be able to find the link on linktree/Genetec. Don't miss the sneaky dot in Linktree. So all of the links for all of the deep dive sessions are up on Linktree/Genetec. So let's take a look back at that modern control room as we now hand over to William Glasson. So we're going to talk a little bit about access control now. So like I said, the potential vulnerabilities with access control, the potential risks, and most importantly, how we can overcome them with unification. So with that in mind, we're going to take one final look at this modern control room, and we're going to hand over to Will to explain how there's a better way of achieving optimum access control with unification. Over to you, Will.
Nice one. Thanks, Lee. Appreciate that. And yeah, thanks to everybody. Welcome. My name's Will Glasson. I've got you for the next 20 minutes. And like Lee said, I'll be running you through the Synergist access control module of Genetec. So I know that there's many faces out there, many registers that already know about Synergist, which is great. But it's also really exciting to see a lot of new people coming on board and joining. So I encourage everybody to lean into the chat box if you have any questions, and we can open up some discussion about access control. So just to recap on some of the numbers that George mentioned at the top of today's call. Yes, at Genetec, we're growing, we're expanding, creeping up in market share, but that's also true in the access control space specifically. And I think a lot of that has to do with organizations realizing that their legacy access control systems can no longer really keep up with the amount and constant changes of security threats that they're being faced with. So we'll have a look at what some of those are. So just to guide you through, we'll have a look at what those market needs are, what we're hearing from the customers on the ground in the access control space. We'll talk a little bit about integration versus unification. This is a really big talking topic at Genetec, but sometimes these 2 points are perceived to be the same thing, and I'll just show you what some of the differences are. Something unique with Synergist is an open and flexible choice of hardware. So for the new players out there, I'll give you a scan through of what that looks like. And then to wrap up, I'll close with some of the new innovations that we've brought to the access control market via Synergist. So to kick off, I'll give you a statement from one of our customers. If we're only using our access control systems to manage doors, we're underutilizing our technology. And I think that's a really great way to sum up what sort of hearing or is echoed throughout the marketplace. A lot of customers are looking to gain operational efficiencies. We know that they're spending lots of money in different types of security technologies. So they're looking to be able to address or confront these threats and challenges faster. Of course, there's a need to have more secure access control systems. An interesting stat at Genetec, we see that 80% of new Synergist deployments, the purchasing decisions are actually being made by IT departments. So they're expecting to see the same IT security standards being applied to their access control devices, which are joining their networks in terms of authentication or encryption. Like everybody out there, more organizations, they want to tap into more data that they have to be able to make more informed decisions about how they go about their businesses. And also a lot of these customers, they've already learned the pitfalls of using proprietary systems. So they're looking forward and looking for smarter ways to be able to tackle access control with open architecture. So we come to the market and address these needs with Synergist by offering comprehensive physical, security, and cyber threat management. We take an open approach that gives these customers the choice and flexibility that they need. And Synergist, it's a trusted enterprise solution. We deal with many of the top global companies with the highest regard to security in the harshest conditions. And Synergist, our access control platform, is unified with video, like you just saw from Dom and Jordan. also license plate recognition and SIP devices, which you'll hear about a little bit later. SIP devices like intercoms and public address speakers as well. Unifying all these things together is really for the quest for operational efficiency so that we can respond faster. And that leads me on to my next slide here, unification versus integration. So, and what the differences are. Like I said before, everybody's already spending the money on CCTV and access control and all these different security technologies. And it would make sense from an operational point of view to have these different systems speaking to each other and sharing information so that we can either gain more insights or respond quicker. So I'll show you what this looks like in Security Desk. This is our client-facing application. Here we can see maps, we can see CCTV. In the top right corner, we can see an intercom call coming in. But let me show you where access control fits in with this. We can see in our events pane all of the live data being presented in the list up the top. That's completely customizable. We can change the order. We can select which things we want to be here or presented to us as an operator. We can see that video surveillance is linked to access control activity. So this gives us a bit of verification about what's happening around our doors. We're also seeing license plates being used as credentials here using auto view. This is a great way to increase the flow of vehicles in and out of our facilities, but it also helps push security out to the boundaries as well. And from the same interface, from that same pane of glass, we can interrogate, investigate, or remotely control doors from either the widget pane, the intercom call, or with the click of a button, we can go further with the door off a map as well. So this is what a unified solution looks like. Well, this is the end goal for the operator, to be able to do all of these different things with a single application. That's ideal for anybody dealing with security. But for customers or for people that aren't using Genetec to be able to achieve something like this, they really need to rely on integrations. But the integrations, it's got to be said that it's not the same as unification as we see it at Genetec. Integration still require you to work with multiple multiple systems provided by multiple vendors. It brings together these systems that they're not really designed to talk to each other. They're not designed to work together. Somebody has to build a little bridge or that integration piece in the middle to make that work. And this can be a bit of a risk sometimes because it might limit your freedom to upgrade for fear of breaking that integration. And that would cause a disruption to your operations if that's how you're using it. So all in all, customers or these type of customers would be missing out on long-term productivity and efficiency gains as well. On the flip side, unification, everything is being managed from a single application and it addresses multiple needs. And that's not just the front-facing client application. If you're an installer, it's the same application as well. So if you know how to enroll a camera into Security Center, it's the same workflow. You've already learned how to enroll a door, a license plate recognition device, or an intercom for that matter as well. So you can really speed up your deployments there. A unified approach gives customers a consistent experience with everything that they're doing, like I just mentioned. All in all, there's less servers, less infrastructure, less training, less lifecycle management, and we don't have to worry about version controls, worrying about upgrades as well. So all in all, it brings down the cost of the security solution. So bringing down the cost of a security solution, another differentiator that I mentioned before is offering customers an open and flexible choice of hardware, which is something quite unique. Like I said before, organizations have already felt what it's like to use proprietary systems where they're limited for choice and selection of what technologies they can use. But with using Synergis, we support an entire ecosystem of different technologies from different vendors, different manufacturers, and each of these provide a different technology solution as well. So We can see the traditional hardwired solutions moving to wireless locks with Acer Abloy and Salto. There's also a bit of a trend at the moment of the push intelligence to the door. Things like the Axis A1601 PoE-enabled network controller is a great solution as well. Data on card and mobile credentials as well. Here in Australia and New Zealand, there's a taste, well, not even a taste, it's a requirement now, or always has been, to have access control and intrusion devices managed on the same hardware platform. So to address that need, we've brought to market the Synergis iX portfolio. So that's a full suite of controllers and downstream I/O modules, encryption, end-of-line encryption devices, keypads, card readers, power supplies, the whole gamut. So that's also something to look into as well for the new players. Coming towards the end here, I'll show you some of the innovations, some of the new things that we brought out with Synergis. It's important to note, like I said before, customers are looking for partners that are more flexible, or I should say more agile, to be able to address the threats and changes. You could have been dealing with cybersecurity or inside attacks, might have been top of mind, say 6 months ago, 12 months ago, but right now everybody's thinking about COVID-19 and how can we get back to business and how can we safely have people inside our facilities. And what are our access control providers? What are they bringing to the table? And how quickly can they bring it? That's an important question that customers are asking. So some of the things that we've brought out recently, more companies, more organizations are looking to push their technology to the cloud, which is something we offer with Synergis software as a service, giving customers a more flexible way to own and deploy access control. There's also a really big trend in moving away from managing card holders and credentials and more focusing on identities within organizations. So last year we brought out Clear ID, which is our physical identity and access management platform. This allows us to automatically provision credentials based on attributes. Who are you within the organization? Which department do you work in? Which regions are you allowed to have access to? So this really takes away human error, it takes away access creep, and really defines and increases our security posture as well, internally and externally. With Clear ID, there's also a visitor management and self-signing kiosk portion to that as well. There's a big move towards mobile credentials, and we support the latest with HID Origo, which was recently launched this year, and also mobile credentials supported from the Salto platform too. Being agile, again, like I mentioned, being able to quickly address new threats. We don't know what's around the corner. We freely made available our proximity report to assist with contact tracing during COVID-19, so that we can run a report and see who's been in close proximity to another cardholder coming through our doors in our facilities, and find out who's been close to each other. And there's also a really big need for access control solutions on unmanned infrastructure. This is a really big one at the moment. And I'll just show you what an example of that is. This here is a roadside traffic cabinet. Transportation agencies use things like this, but as well as oil, mining, gas, telcos. They're putting a lot of really expensive assets out into public spaces. And there's not too much security or control over that. Transportation agencies, they're putting in more network equipment, fiber switches. There's more surveillance equipment going into these cabinets, private data. Speaking to one customer here in Australia, in one state, they've got more than 20,000 of these cabinets. And like I said before, more and more expensive equipment is going into it, as much as $100,000 worth of kit. What's interesting, it's being protected by a $5 key, a mechanical locking key. That lock design hasn't changed in 60 years. That key can be cut, copied, lost. They've got no idea how many of them are out there, who's using them, who's accessing these cabinets. And this poses a real threat. It's a problem because they're really exposing their networks. They're also changing the way that they work. They've got lots of different contractors that are using or accessing these cabinets for maintenance or installation or for whatever purpose. So they really need to know who's accessing these, how long are they actually working on these cabinets for. It is another problem that, say, transportation agencies are finding. So working with some of our technology partners, we've come up with some really clever solutions to be able to put access control on this unmanned infrastructure. It's not just cabinets; it could be gates or fences, storage depots that holding expensive fuels or vehicles. So we're talking about putting technology on this. It could be things from intelligent keys, data on card solutions, or mobile credentials, so that there's some level of security and auditability, and maybe even gather some sort of intelligence in terms of who's accessing and how often these unmanned sites. The end goal, I guess, tying together with the rest of the Genetec portfolio, the customers could get a holistic view of their infrastructure because they can still blend it together with CCTV or license plate recognition. It gives them more information. And here, like I said before, more information, getting some usable data, being able to analyze and maybe use this information to take a proactive stance towards, say, maintenance or even contract billing, as an example. So this is really interesting to me. I'm really excited to talk about unmanned infrastructure, or actually anything in the access control lineup. So if anybody has more interest or needs to learn more, please reach out. Happy to talk. That's all from me. Over to you, Lee.
Thanks, Will. Hopefully I can get the screen back. Brilliant. So thanks for that. It was really great to see not only the power of unification, getting that single pane of glass, that laser focused operator on that single screen, having everything they need, not just the video, the access control, the SIP intercom, but everything they need, which enables them to get rid of that wheelie chair syndrome and just concentrate on the job at hand. So it was great to see that. We've also got a Synergist deep dive session. Again, hit up Linktree/Genetec. Don't forget the dot before the 2 E's for the Synergist date and registration for the deep dive session. We'll be talking about why the access control industry is still connecting the state-of-the-art biometric readers, so the state-of-the-art servers and virtual machines, by using 1980s encryption and communications technology like WeGAND rather than OSDP. There's obviously a better way of doing this. Why are people still adopting this very easily hacked communication standard? So we'll be discussing items like that, as well as Synergist IX, how we're blending intrusion into that unification and that access control using the Synergist IX hardware, as well as several other deep dive topics around access control, all on Wednesday, the 22nd of July. So please join us for that, or pass the link on to any of your technicians or your technical sales team that might be interested. So it's always fun having our friends from New Zealand on. So especially the Kiwi humour. So David, thanks for the comment. Yes, it is a very big microphone, but the win-win is you can see less of my face. So I may be overcompensating, but yeah, it's hiding the camera. So with that, we're going to take one final look at that modern control room. So in the middle of the monitor wall here, we can see that situational awareness. We can see a city environment. We can see license plate recognition assets around that city. By using Genetec intelligence like the correlation engine, we can use that license plate data a lot more effectively than we have done in the past, especially if there's been an incident that's popped up, like an attack, a mugging, somebody's pressed an emergency call point, and then all of a sudden we've got someone speeding away at 100 kilometers an hour within a certain vicinity that's picked up on the license plate, they're probably related incidents. It's all about how we unify and we leverage not just the license plate data, but all of our other data in the system. So I'm going to hand over to Aaron Colley, who's going to show us and talk to us a bit more about AutoView and the power of unifying your license plate recognition technology. So over to you, Aaron.
Thank you, Lee. So I'm a sales engineer for Australia and New Zealand. So most of you should know me by now, but for those of you who don't, I look forward to getting to know you. So now let's get stuck into AutoView, which is the third core pillar of Genetec. And it's something that's not new to us. We've been working on this with LPR for over 15 years and have an extensive experience in the field with fixed and mobile applications. Let's get to those slides. So we're going to discuss the product portfolio and some of the hardware devices that we produce at Genetec. And then in our deep dive session in a few weeks, we'll go into how the technology works and some of the software that accompanies to accomplish different vertical postal applications. So first off the rank is the Sharp V. This is the 4th generation in the fixed camera for us, which brings significant improvements to simplify installations and the first camera to deploy our own dedicated machine learning core for license plate recognition, with all the processing done completely on the edge to reduce infrastructure and hardware costs. Next is the Sharp Z3. This is the 3rd generation of the mobile solution and the first product to use the new Intel Movidius processor, which brings performance enhancement on the edge of up to 160 times over the previous generation, along with the capability to do more analytics on the edge with like vehicle type detection, color detection, and much more that will be coming, and we'll discuss that shortly. And lastly is our Flex Reader, the fully software-based solution to empower cost-effective solutions to reuse existing assets and installations. So let's have a look at the Sharp V. First of all, it has a 1.2 megapixel color context camera, which gives us a wide field of view, which we're able to then capture things, not only the car itself, but things that are happening in the surround. So we're focusing on everything that's happening in that scene. Next, we have the context illuminator. So this is a dedicated illuminator that's designed purely to illuminate for that particular sensor on the camera. So it's got a different intensity level to the one that we're using for the LPR sensor that we've got on there as well. So we've got a dedicated LPR illuminator as well as a dedicated context illuminator. So we have a look at the dedicated LPR camera as well. So it's a 1.2 megapixel monochrome imager. And then when we're going to be releasing a new version this year, we're actually going to be upgrading that to a 2.1 megapixel imager as well. So next year that we'll be releasing the new generation of the Sharp V. So to help with simplifying of installations, we've got the ability to be able to use the varifocal adjustments on the new cameras. With the previous generations, they had fixed lenses, so you really had to specify the location you're going to be installing in. The new version, we only have 2 versions that you need, so you just need to pick whether it's the long range or the standard range, and then you can use the varifocal adjustment to get the perfect field of view. With the new version that's coming out later this year or early next year, they'll actually have a motorized zoom lens on it, so that's how you're going to simplify installations further. Then we have a look at on the back of the unit. So we've got an I/O plug, which the I/O plug we can use for different sensors to trigger reads. We can use it for triggering gates, do all those sorts of things, or inputs and outputs directly from the camera without having to run additional cabling. And to simplify the installation again, we've got a PoE Plus standard Cat5, Cat6 connector on the back of the unit. So previously you'd have to have a specialized cable, but now you just run a standard cable that you run out to any one of your cameras. There's a lot more that this camera can do, and we'll talk about some of those features in our deep dive session when we talk about that in the coming weeks, with some of the things like the plate tilt filter, how we can actually use non-reflective plates as well. So there's going to be a revised version of the camera to be able to detect non-reflective plates. So next off the rank is the Sharp Z3. So this was released earlier this year, and it's the 3rd generation of the mobile LPR solution. So it's designed to take full advantage of the machine learning technology, and this is, as I said, the first one that's using the Intel Movidius chipset. So we actually be able to do quite a lot of processing on the edge and take that away from anything you do on a normal server infrastructure. This one has also got built-in 3 image sensors. So it's got the 1 color context image sensor, as well as the 2 monochrome sensors. And now the advantage of having the 2 monochrome sensors is we're actually able to capture more of the environment. So not only just focusing on the plate now, but we're also focusing on things like street signs, you know, what's happening around. There might be particular bollards or all those sorts of things that we can pick up and react on. With these as well, we're able to do things like stereoscopic measurements. So rather than using offsets and so forth from the camera, we can use that stereoscopic setting to be able to use those 2 cameras to get a 3D depth of field of the system. Next, we've got obviously the full suite of analytics. So straight off the bat, we introduced the vehicle type and color recognition. We're going to be introducing plate origin and much more. Obviously, this is the first iteration of the new processor. So as we develop more analytics, this is going to be expanded on quite considerably. And lastly, the new Z3 is actually a very modular design. So the new modular design means that we've got a base frame. So the processor slots into the base frame, and then it's also got 3 modular slots as well. So those 3 modular slots allow us to build different modules that we can insert into the unit. So we currently have a dedicated navigation module, and we have a dedicated auxiliary PoE module to power digital cameras if we need to. But this means that we can actually design modules for any application, and that could be things along the lines of if you're wanting to pick up certain sensors and so forth. So if you need to pick up certain radio frequencies, or you wanted to invent a module that could pick up electronic scooters and so forth on the side of the road, so that when you're doing the patrol around, if there is any electronic scooters around, you can actually map those, and then they can say, okay, this is where it was at this point in day and time. So it just gives you that flexibility now to really expand on the system and then pick and choose what you want. It also means that if you need to replace anything, it's not replacing the whole unit, you're just replacing the one individual module. And that leads us to the Flex Reader, which is our server-based ALPR system. So this is, allows us to fit into any budget because it uses the existing cameras on site. As long as you've got an existing camera that can read a license plate, both in day and night time, we're able to then use that existing asset, put a bit of software onto a server, and then process that in the background. So it gives us that flexibility of having to reuse the existing installation without having to pay for a new installation and new equipment on site. It's flexible, so it works with any camera that works in the security center. As I said, the only requirement is that you can actually see the plate itself for us to be able to determine and process that in the back end. And it's fully featured, so that means that we can use all the existing infrastructure that's in Security Center Auto View already. So that's things like the hot lists, the reporting functionality that we got, free flow, and a lot of this stuff we'll be talking about in our deep dive session when that comes up in a few weeks' time. So I really hope that you can join us on that. Some of the applications that we're using for Auto View today, the main ones is security. So as Will spoke about previously, we can use access control license plate as a credential, so we can use that as an additional credential, so when someone rocks up to a facility, you can automatically let them in. We can use it for visitor management. We can use it for determining whether there's someone on the lot that we're not wanting to be on the lot. We also have certain plugins that allow us to do things like stakeout, which is a frequency monitor. So that determines if someone, for example, goes between a certain amount of your cameras within a certain period of time, and then on a whitelist, it generates a lot. So it just lets you know that, that someone has been scouting out your premises. Parking solutions for us is quite big. So fixed and mobile parking solutions. So in our deep dive session, we'll talk about free flow and how that works for fixed parking solutions, as well as using the mobile solution with things like pay-by-plate sync to talk to third-party payment providers. And the final main application is law enforcement. So using that for live update listers. So we can actually grab lists, push them to the vehicles, and then we can actually update them while they're on the road. So if there's any updates and any changes, we're able to push those lists to the vehicles in real time. So it enables us to capture anything that's happening. We actually do have quite a few law enforcement customers in Australia that are already using the AutoView platform. We do also have many other different applications that we can use this technology in, which we'll discuss further when we go into the deep dive session. With that, I'll hand you back to Lee now. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Aaron. So really great to see how the LPR unification of security centers coming on, especially with some of that new hardware. But it's not all about that high speed, very accurate deep learning hardware. It's also about the flexibility, and especially with some of our camera vendors on the call, the flexibility of being able to use standard cameras like the Axis or the VivaTech or the Bosch or the Hanwha cameras or the Mobotics cameras that are all well integrated and have all got that capability of high shutter speed to be able to leverage on slower stuff like maybe less than 50 kilometers an hour, coming up to boom gates, around shopping car parks that people don't tend to be driving at hundreds of kilometers an hour. That shorter IR distance, but also the flexibility of using existing surveillance assets or more cost-effective camera assets because you know they're going to be coming to a halt to get access to a boom gate. So the flexibility of having that high-end sharp as well as being able to leverage either existing assets or choosing an asset from any of our supported technology vendors really goes into the unification of our license plate recognition. So like Aaron said, we're going to discuss a lot more on the deep dive session on the 29th of July. So again, if you've got any particular projects upcoming that you want more information on where we're going with AutoView, we're going to talk more about the new Sharp camera coming out next year with the motorized lenses and the evolution of the Sharp V camera, as well as more advanced LPR conversations. So with that, we're going to now discuss the final fourth core pillar of the Security Center portfolio, which is Cipilia, which is our communications management. So I'm going to hand over to Cameron Watton, our new RSM in New Zealand, who's going to take us through this power of unification using audio and communications management. Over to you, Cameron.
Cheers, Lee. Thanks, mate. So Cipilia. Cipilia is the fourth core pillar that gives enhanced collaboration and overall situational awareness with unified security and communications management within the Genetec Security Center. So what is Cipilia? As our core modular security center enables seamless SIP-based communications between operators and intercom devices over your network. Standardization. Cipilia allows for standardization on SIP to protect your investment in intercom technology with a large variety of supported SIP devices. Unification. We can extend your access control and video platform to unify intercom communications management. Call stations can be associated with doors and cameras, ensuring that door and camera related actions are readily available. High security environments. Adding intercom communications within a high security environment adds another level of security to your operations. Security operators can grant or deny access to highly secure rooms or areas by validating video, audio, access control information at the same time. So this is an overview of Cipilia. Cipilia module can manage SIP-enabled edge devices such as door stations, emergency stations, and desktop stations with SIP-enabled intercom exchange servers. Security desk operators can communicate with intercom devices and other operators through video calls directly within the user interface. Within Cipilia, we have an embedded and scalable SIP server. An added benefit of Cipilia's use of SIP is that in some situation avoids the need for a dedicated intercom exchange server, as you can see circled here. The scalable SIP server in Cipilia directly communicates with a variety of SIP-enabled edge devices from multiple vendors, including door and desktop intercom stations. As part of our agnostic offering, we have an ever-evolving ecosystem of partners. Cipilia supports some of the industry's leading brands of intercom equipment, such as Axis, 2N, Stentafon, Command, Jax, and Castell, to name a few. Since core management is embedded within the security center, end users do not need to rely on third-party vendor applications for core management. Cipilia supports an interactive user-to-user video call functionality. Rather than deploy third-party call applications, Security Center interface now includes user-to-user video call functionality to facilitate communications between users from the same interface used to monitor the Genetec access control and video systems. Users can now initiate live audio or video communications with one another using off-the-shelf headsets, webcams, and a security camera. Public address. This is a new feature within Cipilia. This gives the functionality to transmit live and recorded audio across multiple SIP devices connected within Security Center. Using a public address, we can rapidly broadcast messages across your connected devices. When events require the notification of security personnel, employees, patrons, or visitors on your premises, independent systems force you to alternate between applications or issue your messages multiple times through different channels. This slows down the response and forces operators to learn multiple interfaces. Through the use of Cipilia and Genetec, this is no longer an issue. We're able to send out pre-recorded and live messages. Cipilia lets operators broadcast messages from the same interface they use to monitor events. They can play live and recorded audio to groups containing any SIP devices connected to your system. from intercoms and door stations to VoIP and analog devices connected through a SIP trunk or any other devices supported by Serpilia. What this means is we're able to communicate without taking your eyes off the situation. Using Serpilia and public address, there's no need to switch between applications, and this allows required broadcast to be quick and seamless. I will now hand back to Lee so he can demonstrate our 4 core pillars in use in a real live unification situation.
Thanks, Cameron. So yeah, we just really wanted to end off the communications management, just taking a step back and just looking again what this looks like from a unification perspective. So let's use a scenario of somebody driving into a car park like we can see in Security Desk on the screen. Not only have we got the map up to see where the boom gate is, where the different areas are, but we've also got the cameras, the overview cameras, showing the car coming up to the boom gate. Then we've got the SIP intercom camera or the LPR camera showing the close-up of the car license plate, the color, the registration, etc. In this case, the visitor to the facility isn't on the whitelist. He isn't a member of staff or hasn't been logged in using Clear ID, for example, as a visitor that's coming to the premise on that particular day. So the boom gate doesn't automatically open. So because we've got the SIP intercom device, you can see there the two-way conversation using the integrated video, which is unified through Security Desk, as well as the audio conversation with the visitor. We can then pass that conversation and forward it over to the person that visitor is supposed to be meeting, so they can actually confirm and give the person access. Or the operator, because they're already logged into the book, for example, can literally just right-click and open the boom gate. This is part and parcel of the fact that we have the access control controlling the boom gate unified as well. So this really just goes to show that that single pane of glass, that unification concept, just bringing in the video, showing the car coming in, bringing in the license plate recognition, giving the context image as well as reading the plate, and then the SIP intercom capability, not only with the onboard camera, but also with that two-way communication for the person to announce who they're there to visit. And it's a genuine request for entry. And then that final piece of the puzzle, which is the access control, by a simple right click, they've opened the boom gate and given the person access to the car park. So again, 4 ways, those 4 core pillars, all coming together in a single scenario, all in Security Desk. So again, making the operation of that system and that process much easier. So we're nearing the end now, so stay with us for another 5-10 minutes while we just cover off the end of the session. Like we talked about, we've got those deep dive sessions. Serpilia is no different. We're going to talk about the automation and the PA announcements, being able to send out a recorded announcement to maybe the Axis IP horns, for example, or the emergency help points, or any of our supported SIP devices as a one-to-many PA announcement, which could be obviously recorded and scheduled to remind people in a train station that they're not allowed to smoke, or at the touch of a button using Security Desk can be a manual announcement. So we're really going to deep dive into the capabilities and the future roadmap of Serpilia as we progress into Security Center 5.10 later this year. So the last topic I wanted to quickly talk about was mobile, and that's because we want to get the mobile app into all of our systems integrators and our technology partners and even our consultants' hands. The way that we're going to do this is readily available on Android Play Store as well as iTunes. But we just wanted to give you a bit of an overview in the new mobile app. I say new, it's over a year old now. The reason why it was refactored and the new capabilities. So straight away, you can see we're now using two-factor authentication. Security Center 5.9.2 enabled us to start bringing in two-factor authentication support, not just with Security Center, but also the mobile app. So using OpenID Connect, Okta, for example, which enables us to now use Face ID. The fingerprint button on the device as well to log in securely. And like we saw with that modern control room, making sure people have their own user accounts they're logging in means we have full auditability. If we're giving and to some certain transportation customers or police departments or city environments, we're giving over 1,000 people access with the mobile app. We obviously need to make sure that that access is controlled, and if we have an event, we can restrict that access to only the people that need access are able to access the video. And maybe those lesser users that don't need access to video in a major event actually get kicked off the system to make way for those priority users. And that's how we've done it with a native role, bringing the mobile capability into the core. We've got the full area view in there, not just showing the camera assets, but the LPR assets, the access control assets, and of course the video. A very flexible video screen, so you can adjust the layout just like you can with the web client or with Security Desk, and also intuitive motions on the phone. So like you'd expect, if you want a certain amount of information when you're using an app on a mobile phone, you start swiping up. The further you swipe up, the more granular information you get. Like I said, access control, not only being able to control a door, but actually see your access control users, to be able to challenge somebody while you're walking around the premise, maybe a security guard. Does that person really look like the person? Also, that license plate recognition and the ability of adding a hot list on the go. So a security guard that's chasing a car may only get a partial read of the plate, the first 3 characters. You can still type that in to the mobile app and see where else on the facility that car has been or is going to. And one of the biggest things, bringing maps into the mobile app. Plan Manager, not just from a Google Earth perspective now, but also from a floor plan level. We're able to plot not just the cameras, but all of these assets, as well as GPS in the app. And like I said, bring in more capabilities like mission control and that thumbnail, and being able to swipe up to get a better view or a full screen of any particular asset that you're looking at. So with that in mind, we're also going to give the capability, like with the mobile app, of transmitting the GPS coordinates, being able to see that in the plan manager. So if you log into the demo system, you'll be able to see not just where you are with your mobile phone, but you'll also be able to stream your camera from your mobile phone back into plan manager. Or if you've got a couple of people you're running a demo with, you can send the video from mobile phone to mobile phone. So it's a really powerful demo. So this is one of the key things that we want to be doing over the next few months with our systems integrators and our technology partners, is really getting the demo tools in your hands. The first of which is a carry-on size and weight demo kit. We're making these available for purchase by our security integrators. These are going to be less than 9 kilograms and of a size that you can take them on a plane when we're able to safely fly again, making them very easy to take into customer meetings and obviously look professional with the whole suite of unification capability that Security Center offers. We're also going to obviously continue offering the free Security Center demo licenses, not just in this case, but if you have a demo facility, we're going to be able to obviously get Security Center 5.9 and when it's released 5.10 spun up to enable you to facilitate your own demos. One of the main things we're going to do is, like I talked about, we're going to give you access to the ANZ cloud instance. So Security Center that's running as part of our SaaS system in Azure in ANZ, we're going to give you access to that to be able to log in and show off the full unification, connect your mobile device directly to the cloud system, log in with Security Desk and see all of our technology vendors' camera assets as well. So we work very closely with our camera vendors to be able to add some of the latest and greatest camera technology and devices to this demo system, so you can actually showcase that to your customers, all from a cloud-hosted system. Obviously, as you've seen with Aaron and Jordan and myself, we've now got a team of 13 sales engineers throughout the whole of Asia Pacific to enable Genetec-led sales demos, whether that be obviously remotely in the current climate or face-to-face, using obviously a demo facility. Like George talked about, we're going to be opening an office in Sydney, and with that will come an experience centre, like we have in Montreal, like we have in Paris, like we have in Singapore, but somewhere that you can take your top-tier customers and give them the full Genetec experience. And obviously, to round that off, we're going to have a specific deep dive session, not just on the tips and tricks of how to demo Security Center, but also how to navigate this cloud instance, how to apply for your credentials, how to get the app, how to log into the web client, and how to install Security Desk on your laptop and connect it to Security Center SaaS. So again, that's on the 23rd of September, so a little bit further out. Which gives us time to obviously make sure that we can have hundreds of people connected to the SaaS instance concurrently, and it's going to be a very conclusive demo. So we just wanted to end today just as a recap. We've talked a lot about Security Center today. So obviously that strong foundation, that unification that ties together the technical capabilities of video access control and license plate recognition, as well as building on that with the fourth core pillar of Sepilia and communications management. We saw what it looks like in the real world, in that modern control room. And by the way, everything that was on that monitor wall is developed by Genetec. So all of that situational awareness that comes with our top-end capabilities like City Graph and Mission Control, for example. The graphical maps with Plan Manager, and actually getting good visualization on what's going on with all of that data that's coming into that control room. And then obviously using the power of intelligence with video analytics, our correlation engine, privacy protection, etc. So just to end, just a recap of what we talked about today. We've covered off the four core pillars of Security Center, and not just the capability, but also the risk and how Security Center helps overcome that risk and those challenges. We heard a lot about from Will on innovation and how we're using access control to be able to run a proximity report. To see how close people have been together. So we're going to take what we've seen today, and tomorrow we're going to turn it on its head. We're going to learn how Genetec are innovating the everyday, not just protecting the everyday, which has been the tagline for many years now. Now we're also innovating the everyday, using this close collaboration with our customers, using the agility of being a privately owned company that still invests in 30% R&D year on year. We're able to be a lot more agile than some of the other people in the industry, to be able to innovate, and together we can produce and develop and get to market these clever innovations that's helping us overcome these current challenges and obviously the existing challenges that we've had in the past. But we're going to have a session tomorrow off the bat around not just access control, but how we're reducing face-to-face contact with Sepilia and communications management. Also, how we're helping open up new facilities with capacity restrictions, with crowd density analysis and people counting, as well as LPR, how we're trying to analyze how many people's actually in the shopping mall or how many people's in the car park that's next to the beach, for example, to make sure that the capacities are still in safe limits. And obviously how we then use the dashboards to visualize that and make sure that the people that need that information have got it clearly and easily and haven't got to be an expert on Security Desk. Then we're going to talk a bit more about the video analytics, the Kiwi Vision side of Security Center, having video analytics unified and in the core and what benefits that gives us. We already touched on it today, how we're leveraging the GPU and also how we're leveraging deep learning to be more effective with video analytics. Also, we're going to talk a little bit about cloud, how we're being flexible with how we containerize and deploy different Genetec services in the cloud versus on-premise or as a hybrid. So we're not chucking away our investment on-premise, and we're starting to use some of the flexibility of the cloud. and then we're going to cap off tomorrow with some teasers on the roadmap, where we're going, not just with this year, but where our vision is over the next 12 to 24 months, for example. So with that, I can see some questions start coming in. I'll just maximize the chat box. Scotty, hey Scotty, hope you're well, mate. Scotty's been quite prolific. Remove the charge for the first 5 users. Same as so there has been actually movement with, I presume you're talking about mobile connections. So when we brought it in the core, you're not just getting user connections for security desk in the base license. We then added an additional 5 connections for web. We now also add 5 connections for mobile as well. Intercom audio on mobile app. Scotty, it's coming, mate. It's been a big request for many years, getting Serpilia into the mobile app. The reason that we've started calling it the 4th core pillar is with 5.10 later this year, not too many months away now. We're going to be bringing Serpilia into the core, like we did with Plan Manager several years ago, away from the plugin to be able to bring in more functionality and have it as a native role with the failover capability, the security, etc. We're doing exactly the same thing with Serpilia, and the main reason behind that is we want that capability in the mobile app as well as obviously mission control. So that's coming, Scotty. Another one from Scotty. Is Scotty the only person left on this call still? De-warping single lens panoramic cameras on the mobile app. You've obviously been talking to Aaron Colley, mate. So yes, that's been requested with R&D. We know that's a bugbear with the new mobile app. So yeah, being able to de-warp those panoramic cameras on the mobile app is coming. We just need to do some tweaks with the media gateway. One of the reasons that we brought the GPU acceleration into the media gateway, because we know where we want to be over the next 6 to 12 months. So again, it's not falling on deaf ears. We're actually bringing the de-warping capability, not just into the mobile app, but the web app as well, mate. Okay, so I think that's pretty much all from the questions, a lot from WAs. Any more questions, drop them in. We'll stay online for another 30 seconds or so if you've got any other questions. Like I said, please come back tomorrow for the day 2. It's really going to be about innovation tomorrow, where we're using that R&D money to put it back into intelligence and the innovation, as well as obviously the analytics side of stuff. Why we've spent out on getting the PhDs and those data scientists on staff, and obviously the benefits that having the analytics under the hood is really giving our customers. David, you're more than welcome, mate. Glad you could make it. Great to have our New Zealand friends on, like I said. Aaron, is there going to be audio from the cameras in mobile? So yeah, exactly. So when we redo the mobile app to be able to bring in audio, not just from Serpilia, you'll also be able to benefit from that from the cameras. At the moment, it's just in security desk, but yeah, the idea is bring in more capabilities into the mobile app, Aaron, and audio is one of those. So any more questions before we log off for the day? Like I said, if you go to that linktree/Genetec site, don't forget the dot before the 2 E's in Linktree. You'll have a list of all of the links, not just today. Obviously, you had the link to join, but tomorrow's session, as well as all of the deep dive sessions, which will be running weekly with Aaron, Jordan, and myself, and Zane Engstrom, our technical guru, the solutions architect, will be joining for those curly questions where you can really get more technical, as well as obviously those demo accounts. Shane, thanks for the message, mate. It's great to have you on. Some more Cameron's mates by the look of it. Aaron Lane, will transcoding always be required for the mobile app? The reason that we transcode, Aaron, and we do pass-through, the reason we transcode is because mobile apps are traditionally over potentially flaky Wi-Fi or cellular connections. So rather than trying to send high bandwidth, it's a lot better for us, or a lot more efficient to transcode that video. And like I said, now we've got the GPU offloading capability. We can do a lot more transcoding on a lot less hardware, we can reduce that down to maybe VGA. And let's think about it. If we're looking at something on a screen that size, we don't need 1080p, and we definitely don't need the bandwidth cost of getting that video to that device. So transcoding is still an efficient way of combating the lack of obviously 5G connectivity, and obviously in rural areas, not even 4G connectivity, or contended networks like Wi-Fi networks. So this is why we're obviously making transcoding a media gateway more efficient with the GPU offloading, mate. But there are ways and means of pass-through, so reach out to us directly and we can show you the pass-through numbers. We can pass through H.264 today. So one from Sid, thanks to the Genetec team. You're more than welcome, and he's coming back tomorrow. We like to hear that. See you tomorrow, Sid. And one from Aaron again. Thanks for the webinar, guys. Always good to have you on, Aaron. And yep, tomorrow's going to be a great session. But I think that's all of the questions. So with that, we're going to end off today. Thank you for joining. Thank you for investing the 90 odd minutes that you've been on. We hope you've got some new information, especially some of the innovation that we've seen with security and everything else that's going on with Genetec. Feel free to reach out to any of us if you've got any additional questions after the webinar. And hopefully we'll see you back tomorrow. So with that, thank you, and have a good afternoon. Cheers.